The moon is getting crowded, not in the sense of tourists or outposts, but in ambition. NASA is sending astronauts back by 2026. China has its eyes set on a lunar base by 2030. India just landed near the moon's south pole, and Japan wants to explore Mars next. But in July 2025, an unexpected player stepped forward, South Korea. At first glance, this might sound like a long shot, but make no mistake, South Korea isn't just joining the race, they want to build a permanent base on the moon by 2045. It's bold, it's strategic, and it could shift the balance of power in space for decades. So what's really going on? Why is South Korea aiming for the moon, and why now? Let's dive into a story that mixes science, ambition, and geopolitics, and one nation's plan to carve out its place beyond Earth. Just a few years ago, South Korea had almost no presence in space. While it excelled in electronics, robotics, and AI, its space program was young and low-key. That changed fast. In 2021, the government launched KASA, the Korean Aerospace Administration. Its mission turned South Korea into a top-tier space power within 25 years. The first major milestone came in 2022 when the Lunar rocket successfully placed a satellite into orbit. It was South Korea's first fully domestically built launch vehicle, but that was just the beginning. In the years that followed, South Korea rapidly expanded its space tech capabilities. They invested in Earth observation, satellite communications, and AI-driven robotics. And now, they're setting their sights higher, much higher. Their goal? To become one of the top 5 spacefaring nations by 2045. And to do that, they're aiming for the moon. What sets South Korea apart is their ability to scale quickly. They've done it before in smartphones, car manufacturing, entertainment. Now, they want to do it again in space. This isn't a random ambition, it's a logical next step. A roadmap to establish a permanent lunar base by the year 2045. The first step? Develop a robotic lunar lander by 2032. It will carry instruments to test the moon's surface, search for resources, and lay the groundwork for future missions. Then, a gradual expansion, deploying autonomous systems, building infrastructure using in-situ resources, and finally, establishing a manned base. According to KASA, the base will be solar-powered, modular, and partially built using 3D printing with lunar regolith. It will support long-term human presence as well as science missions, mining, and perhaps even interplanetary transport hubs. This isn't science fiction, it's backed by a detailed 20-year roadmap and growing government funding. The moon base is part of a broader strategy, what officials call the Space Economy Initiative, meant to boost South Korea's economic and scientific reach beyond Earth. For a country that only recently launched its first lunar orbiter, this is an extraordinary leap. The base is envisioned as a multi-purpose facility, not just for South Korean astronauts and engineers, but also to attract international missions, collaborations, and commercial experiments. In short, South Korea wants to build more than a base, they want to build a hub. Unlike NASA or CNSA, South Korea knows it can't do everything alone, at least not yet, so it's taking a hybrid approach. Indigenous development plus international collaboration. First, they're continuing partnerships with NASA, especially in terms of data sharing and technology transfer. Their 2022 lunar orbiter, Lunar, was a joint project with American institutions. Second, they're investing heavily in the private sector. Companies like Hanwha Aerospace, Next One are being tapped to build everything from launch vehicles to AI guidance systems and robotics. Third, they're focusing on critical infrastructure, lunar communication networks, autonomous rovers and cargo bots, and systems for in-situ resource utilization, ISRU, including the production of oxygen and water from lunar soil. By 2035, they hope to demonstrate the ability to extract and store oxygen. By 2040, deploy remote-operated construction systems to begin building structures. All of this is being coordinated by a government-led space roadmap, modeled after South Korea's previous successes in industrial planning, like their rise in semiconductors, cars, and smartphones. It's not just about launching rockets, it's about building a sustainable space ecosystem from Earth to Moon. They're also exploring smart modular designs for living quarters, capable of adapting to temperature extremes, radiation, and micrometeorite threats. And AI will play a central role, from diagnostics to habitat maintenance and real-time problem solving on the surface of the moon. South Korea is betting big, but they're betting smart. Why the moon? Why now? Because space isn't just about science anymore, it's about power. The United States and China are in a full-blown race for lunar dominance. India is catching up fast. Japan is investing heavily in deep space exploration. In this new space age, the moon isn't neutral territory. It's a potential source of rare minerals, water ice, energy, and geopolitical leverage. By building a moon base, South Korea isn't just advancing its science programs, it's signaling that it intends to be a serious player in this new arena. It's a move that boosts national prestige, technological sovereignty, and diplomatic weight. South Korea also knows it can't rely on the US forever. In a world where space alliances shift rapidly, having independent access to the moon could be a game changer. And let's not forget, the first country to build stable infrastructure on the moon may also shape the rules that govern its use. This is more than a science mission, it's a strategic foothold. And South Korea is planting its flag early, not in dust, but in vision and long-term planning. If South Korea succeeds, the moon won't be a two-player game anymore. It will become truly multipolar. That changes everything. It could lead to more cooperation as nations share resources and data, or it could spark competition and disputes. There are already questions being asked: who owns lunar water? Who can mine helium-3? Can one country claim territory if they build a base there? International space law is fragile and mostly outdated, and the more nations reach the moon, the more urgent it becomes to update these agreements. South Korea's move forces the world to reckon with this reality. Their base, if completed, could trigger new treaties, new alliances, and even new rivalries. The moon is no longer just a dream. It's a next frontier of global politics, and the more nations step in, the more complex and fascinating the game becomes. Of course, none of this will be easy. South Korea still faces major obstacles. Funding. Can public interest and investment remain steady over 20 years? Radiation, long-term lunar habitats need serious shielding from cosmic rays. Energy storage, surviving the 14-day lunar night is no small feat. Logistics, launching heavy cargo regularly requires major advances. And finally, technology. South Korea still depends on other nations for deep space navigation and propulsion, but there's also public perception. Maintaining excitement for such a distant goal will be a challenge, especially as economic priorities shift. If any part of this plan stalls, the entire moon-based timeline could fall apart, but South Korea has overcome similar odds before. Few thought they'd become a global tech leader in just a few decades, yet here they are, and they're not alone. They've inspired a new generation of scientists, engineers, and dreamers who now see space as part of South Korea's future. Now, they're aiming even higher. Space isn't just about rockets and strategy, it's about people. And in South Korea, public interest in space has surged in recent years. Science fiction films, documentaries, and K-dramas have touched on space themes, creating cultural momentum. Universities are opening aerospace programs, startups focused on space tech are emerging in Seoul, Daejeon, and Busan. Government and media campaigns are reinforcing the dream that space belongs not just to astronauts, but to everyone. South Korea is actively promoting STEM education, encouraging the next generation to join the space movement. And beyond curiosity, there's pride. Many South Koreans see the lunar base as a national milestone, something that unites generations around a futuristic vision. In short, the mission is technical, but it's also deeply emotional and aspirational. Why invest billions into the moon? Because what happens there could shape Earth's economy. Helium-3 could power fusion reactors, lunar water could support off-Earth colonies, the moon could serve as a gateway to Mars and beyond. South Korea wants a stake in this emerging lunar economy. By building early, they position themselves not only as explorers, but as future service providers, powering communication, logistics, and resource distribution on and around the moon. This could also open new export markets for Korean robotics, sensors, and clean energy tech. It's not just about flags and science, it's about business, influence, and the architecture of tomorrow's civilization. The world is watching Artemis, China's Chang'e program, and India's growing space sector, but while the headlines focus on the giants, a rising power is quietly preparing a bold move. South Korea's 2045 moon-based plan isn't just a symbol, it's a statement. A declaration that the future of space won't be decided by yesterday's superpowers alone. If they succeed, they'll rewrite the map of lunar presence. If they fail, they'll still have pushed the limits of what's possible. One thing is certain, the moon is no longer empty. It's a stage, and every nation wants a role. 2045 may not be about who plants the most flags, but who lays down the first true foundations.